So thank you for coming to my podcast, Rodney of Playing It Safe. And for those of you that don't know, Rodney is my brother-in-law, pretty awesome dude. And I really wanted to, thank you for coming and take this opportunity to interview because I believe that you are very creative in everything you do and you always give really good advice. So I wanted to um, just bring you in for a second. So if you can please, introduce yourself and explain a little bit of the kind of job you do.
Okay. So I'm Rodney Daut, as she said, and I am a coach, a marketing coach. I help coaches and consultants create compelling offers that help them get more clients. I also work for an organization called the Lefko Institute, and I help them create and market their programs as well.
And
Yeah.
so when you're in these positions, I know we were having a conversation earlier outside and we are talking about coaching people that, they have really good ideas or they have goals, but people just can't, you know, get to them because they really don't have a plan.
Right.
So, you were describing if you were talking to somebody, what would you tell somebody that, comes to you with a business idea?
So we figure out what it is they're trying to do, and once we kind of get clear on that, I always say, look, don't start a business, start a project. You need to start a project and get it going because you start a business, people are thinking of all sorts of things that they don't necessarily need to do. Oh, I have to have a website after this, I have to have that. Not really. First, you need to get a customer, basically. Your first thing is to get a customer, and people are like, "No, I need this. They need this. The customer needs to see this, that." I said, "No, actually, no. They don't. They don't really need to see all that. They need to see you. You need to be able to explain what it is you're doing, what you're going to do for them, and you don't even know what needs to go on that website until you've actually got a customer, and now you can find out for them why did you say yes." And so I've started a couple different businesses at different times, and the first thing I do is get a customer, get someone to buy it, and then you find out from them why did you buy it, why did you trust me, and usually it's because I found out what their problem was, and helped to create a plan to solve it. And so if you have an idea for a business, you say, "Oh, I want to create a." Gosh, I'm trying to think of somebody who had some kind of idea. I've got a client who he helps actors
Mm.
who audition. They have audition fears, and their fears are getting in the way. So, how do we determine if that's a good business idea? Well, one is we know it is because there's already people doing that for a
Hmm.
living. So that's good. But still, you have to get a customer. What do? I say, look, I'm going to train you on how to have a conversation with somebody that leads to you presenting your offer to them. And so you ask the questions, like so he's basically asking them questions, what their goals, what their obstacles are, and then he can present his solution because he's trained in a process to help people deal with fears. And sure enough, there he goes. He can start making sales. Does he need a website yet? Does he need all these other things yet? No, just get a couple customers. Once you get that, then you know what to do next. And and that's kind of what I tell people. So do a project and get a customer.
And you were mentioning something that you believe is really important for kids to be taught early on.
Yeah, taught how to achieve goals. So a lot of people think, oh, I set a goal and I'm just going to write a plan. Yeah, but how do you write that plan
Hmm.
to reach that goal, especially when it's a goal nobody knows how to do? So if you want to be like a doctor or a lawyer, we were talking earlier, there's pretty much a laid out plan. You got to get good grades in high school, maybe take some test prep courses, then you got to do good in college, and you got to take the MCATs. There's like a distinct sequence that's already laid out. But what if you say, I want to be a DJ before DJing was even a thing. Even DJing is a thing, it's not really clear what to do.
Hmm.
So I said, let's lay out, what the objective is. I want to get hired as a DJ by somebody, or I want to start this business doing whatever it is. Let's lay out the obstacles. Most people are pretty aware of their obstacles. Let's lay them out. Let's get them really clear. Now let's lay out for each obstacle, what is the positive outcome if we overcome that obstacle. Lay those out. Now we look at actions. So we end up with three columns, obstacles, and then kind of like the what I call intermediate objectives or milestones, and then actions. Then you put the actions in order and you start getting to work. And there's an organization called TOC for Education, which actually teaches kids this, so children can learn it. They even teach kids 5 and 6 years old how to do this. So adults can do it. People in business do it. A lot of high-level business planners do things like that. But the average person doesn't typically know that, and
That's
so
very
they're
true.
totally lost. All they see is the obstacles, and I actually say that's fine. That's all you see is obstacles because that's where we're going to start anyways.
Yeah, definitely. And I think because when people like usually run into something, an obstacle or just like one rejection, they're done.
Hmm.
And they don't know how to move past that. Their
Exactly.
ego is shot and then they can't move past that. So you get paid to like really help people with advice.
Hmm.
How did you get into that?
So it started basically 20 years ago. So it's 2021 now. It started around 2000. I was a teacher, public school teacher, and I had different issues and problems. And I was always looking in personal growth books and things about it. And one year I went to the library, right? It's like the Friday of spring break. And I went to the library to get some reading, books to read over spring break. And one of the books actually was a book by this guy who's a coach who talked about changing behavior. And I was actually really skeptical of the book, but I said, check it out. And when I read the book, stuff I thought was really enlightening. I thought, well, this is really powerful stuff. So I ended up contacting the guy, and he
Oh,
said, hey, you should come to my training. We're gonna have a training in a couple months. So I said, okay, sure. Was not expecting to be invited to something like that, but I did. I went there, and then I loved it. And then I was kind of talking to him. I said, you need to really get this out to more people. How are you doing now? Oh, we have a lot of hard time getting people to do this stuff. And I ended up doing research on how small businesses succeed. I ended up
mm,
reading this book called Niche Craft by Dr. Linda Falkenstein. I think the book is out of print now, but at the time it was still in print. And she was like, you need to figure out like an area that you're going to work in. Instead of like, he's like, we change your behavior. We can change your behavior. That's really broad. So I ended up helping him come up with an idea, inspired by that book, to work with just people with fear of public speaking.
wow.
And then
That's a big one.
that was a big one,
Yeah,
right?
because
Yeah.
people just don't like speaking in public.
Exactly, exactly. So, um, and he ended up doing like what I tell people to get a customer. So find a customer. So he did. He had no trouble finding customers just directly through his network. Uh, and I basically gave him instructions. And by the way, I was new to all this stuff, but I found books. I said, read this book. It's going to tell you how to build your website now that you've got 10 customers who've given you testimonials. Put it on a website. Here's how to set up AdWords, or not. Actually, it wasn't AdWords. It was Overture, pay per click back in those days. So how do you set up Overture? He did all that stuff. Business started rolling in. They ended up with a waiting list of clients. So
Wow. And
yeah,
are you still in contact with that gentleman today?
yes, I am. Yeah, they're the Lefko Institute. They weren't called
Okay.
that back then, but I helped them create that. And then they ended up hiring me. They say, "Hey, we want you to do more stuff like this for us." so, so I ended up getting hired by them when I left when I left being a public school teacher.
And are there any regrets with that?
No, not at all. I've been able to do so many different and creative things. I mean, I like solving the unstructured problem. There's problems that people have in that organization. We've had ups and downs, and just being able to take this unstructured situation, figure out what to do with it. Morty, who had hired me, he actually died a few years ago. Died in 2015, and basically we're like, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to figure this out? So I ended up taking on more roles in the organization just in order to manage everything. To like,
Mm-hmm.
how much money are we taking in? How much money do we need to take in? All these kinds of things, setting up different measures, things we hadn't had before, because I wanted to make sure I still had a job.
Yeah.
So I was like, am I gonna have to get myself another job? Which I actually didn't want to do. So yeah, we ended up doing all sorts of things we never did before, like keeping track of a target monthly revenue every month. When I would plan the calendar of what courses we were going to deliver that year, I used to just look at what we did last year and just try to replicate it. And now I was looking at, okay, how much revenue is each of these going to bring in? Is it going to bring in enough at the end of the year so it all ends up, in the black?
Mm-hmm.
Do we end up with profit? And so when we started building business systems, like I got his wife was working in the company, she still is. I got her trained in like how do you have a sales conversation.
Okay.
She was, fairly good at it, but she's up in like 80, 90% success now. And then how do you make sure that it translates to a high ticket sale too? So we were basically building in like one system after another. And so that's basically what I like to do. I like to learn how to solve it. And then now once we solve it, let's optimize it and then let's move on to the next problem.
So you teach people in essence, and I know it originally started off as like public speaking, right?
Hmm.
And what made you become really good at that? like as far as you becoming an excellent public speaker yourself, or also having the skill to talk someone up to their sales to 80 to 90%? With,
So public speaking, I did wasn't actually doing a lot of public speaking when we were helping people with just the psychological aspect. We
okay.
weren't like teaching them how to do it. I actually do have a program where I teach people how to like structure a presentation and make it interesting now, but that's only from the last 3 years or so. Since I started doing a bunch of online presentations, so then I said, okay, let's break it down to a system. And I actually learned the basics of my system from a teacher of mine named Sean D'Souza. But that's what I always say: if you can't find a good teacher, there's always somebody really good at it. If there isn't, then you do have to figure out the structure of the things yourself. But I was fortunate with that. And then when it came to, I think you asked another question though about what was the other one?
Well, like encouraging people for sales, like how do you get
Oh,
them to?
I learned basically that people actually had studied this. How do you have the one-on-one conversation that leads to the sale? So I started reading their stuff and studying it, and then I taught it to Shelley and said, "Here's the questions you need to ask. Here's how you need to respond to some of those questions, the answers they give you, and then here's how you make the offer." And we had to structure the service in like 5 steps so that it was a structured offer, not just I'm going to work with you for an hour, a week until a certain time frame. No, you need to give them a really structured framework so they can say, "Oh, that makes sense. I can see why I need all those pieces, and why I need to work with you for a certain amount of time." So,
So now you've been doing this for you said about 20 years now.
mhm.
Now, it's really interesting that you said you were a teacher before. And what made you go into teaching at that time?
What made me go into teaching? So so it was 1990s. I was in college, and I was studying philosophy. Then I thought that's not too practical. I want to make some social change. Let me study political science. Maybe I'll get into politics one day. And at some point, I thought, the real way to change society is with education. So let me become a teacher, and let me see where I'll go with that.
Hmm.
And yeah, so that's how I ended up becoming a teacher. And it's kind of fun too because I was always teaching people things. Like even when I was in college, like I would learn something like how to study something better, and then someone would be like, "Oh, how'd you do that?" I'm like, "Oh, here's how you do it," and I would teach them like my approach to studying, or so. So it was actually kind of a natural thing to do. Like nobody was surprised that I would want to become a teacher. So
Okay.
yeah.
Now, and things like, now that you're in your position now and people see you, do people think maybe it just always came to you pretty easily because, you talk with confidence and you seem to have, all your shit together, as we would say, right? So,
It doesn't feel that way all the time, but um, yeah, I talk with confidence. Here's the thing I'm gonna say, and nobody will ever want to like admit this, but people who talk with confidence doesn't mean anything, right?
mm,
Look at their track record. So, because there's people out there who, if you interview them, they're gonna be like and on all this, and they actually do know what they're talking about, but they just like need to be prepared in order to talk about it. So what I will say is, there's certain things I've accomplished, certain things I still haven't figured out, certain things I'm working on figuring out. So um, I would say is, and this is not answer to your question, but this is a thing that I was thinking about when we were talking earlier. If you want to be successful, just solve a problem.
okay.
If you have 20 problems, just solve one, then solve another, then solve another. You're going to get to a point where people are like, "Wow, you're doing really good," and all your mind is still like, "There's still 25 more problems to solve." but that's how the Lefko Institute. That's how we got successful, solving one problem at a time. And like right now, where we're at, a few years ago, I was actually thinking, "Oh, we're not making enough money from the courses that we're selling for me to stay on here."
Mm,
I'm
hmm.
looking at the numbers and I'm like, it doesn't add up. I'm like going to be costing them money if the trend keeps going downward. So I spent time and energy on learning. Okay, we tried multiple marketing approaches that would only work in the short term, like they work for a little while and they'd wear out. So what's really going to do it? Tried a few things, learned a few things, ended up learning something called the art of pre-sale, and then the sales started ticking up. And so now we get last time the course sold in January, it sold out in less than 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
So then we have that problem solved. Okay, but then we have a new problem. Course sells out in 2 hours. We put in a waiting list page, and then you have like 25 people sign up for the waiting list right after. Well, what does that tell you? There's a backlog of people who want to take it. So we have to figure out how to increase capacity. Fortunately, this past year, our training was so good. We got 3 people certified in our work, and I have 2 of them that can be ready to help me teach the course so we can actually take on more people. Because we have a lot of individual work we give them. So it takes a lot of our time. So just solving one problem after another. So now we have the problem of getting people into the course, no longer a problem. Now the problem of, oh, we have a lot of people who can't get served. Let's increase capacity. And same thing with our one-on-one work. Shelly, we had her booked all the way till April.
Wow.
Yeah. And then we're like, well, that's not great. Well, fortunately, we just certified 3 people, so we can actually get some of them to take on some of the new clients that come in. And so we'll make money, they'll make money. Everybody, it's a win-win for everybody. So we just solve one problem after another.
And what makes you keep your mind thinking that way in the sense, and what do I mean by that is that you have a successful company going on, right?
Hmm.
It's going, but most people are like, cool, great, it's going, and then of course their downfall because they weren't preparing. How, what goes on in the mind of Rodney to keep thinking of how do we keep adding and moving that? Where does that come from?
I'm always trying to improve the system, whatever it is. So when we're teaching, I'm always looking at improvements. Literally, I'll make improvements the day we put out a lesson, and there's an assignment. They get an assignment. So all their assignments for the week. It's Monday morning. I look at the first student's assignments and I go, oh, we got to change the instructions here. That this should not be happening. So I'm like constantly working on improving it. But I think a lot of it comes from just wanting to things to be better. I think some people can easily rest on their laurels, and uh, basically my goal gets bigger. So in fact, one of the reasons that when I go back to getting more people to help me with the course, it wasn't even to serve more people, even though I saw how that would eventually happen. Like I would be able to do that. But the main thing was, oh, I'm spending way too many hours on this. I can't do the other things. So if I get people to help me with it, then that will do that. And fortunately, the system we set up in place actually does prepare people for that. Um, so I guess it's just always wanting to do something else. Did you ever watch Hamilton?
I've only watched partial of it,
All right,
and I hate to admit that, but that's just because I'm not into musicals.
all
But
right.
I'm sorry for anyone that's listening that is.
No need to be sorry. I mean, to be honest, I usually don't like musicals like that where it's nothing but singing and there's no dialogue in between. But I did like that one. But there's this song where they're like, you'll never be satisfied,
Mhm.
and it's true. If you're going to be satisfied reaching a certain plateau, then yeah, I to me, you're gonna not keep doing that. So I'm like, okay, where's the next place to focus? Um, if we're focusing on getting people in the door, okay, we're focused on that. Oh, now we have too many people. We have a line out the door. Let's focus on seeing if we can get people increase our capacity to serve those people. Okay, and then at some point we do that, and then we might say, oh, we don't have a line at the door anymore, and we have to work on that. We're just going to work on whatever piece needs the work. Um, I think if you focus, you can do that. When people are not focused, they're just doing activities. Like so, someone will say, "Oh, what are you working on?" They give me a list of to dos, and I'm like, "So what are these to dos aiming towards?" Well, these things just need to be done. Yeah, I got it. And what are you aiming towards? What's the outcome you're trying to
Mhm.
reach? What are you trying to improve? What are you trying to grow? Oh, well, I was just kind of getting through the day. Well, if you just get through the day, yes, you will rest on your laurels. You reach a certain level of success, you'll just say, "Oh, good, I can just get through the day." But if you're actually aiming towards something, then you're once you get there, you're going to want to get something else. And I always tell people, I say, my guarantee is when I work with a client, whatever level you reach at the end of this work, you're still going to want to do something else. So just remember that you're dissatisfied because you're dissatisfied in general. Like you're always going to not be satisfied with where you got because that's why you started something in the first place. You weren't satisfied. You reach a certain level. And unless you're going to retire or something, if you literally have a goal like, I just want to set up a business that runs itself, and which doesn't typically happen anyways, um, you reach that, then maybe you say, I'm satisfied and I'm just going to leave it, or if you're selling out your business, if you're one of those people like Elon Musk, oh, I'll sell all my shares in PayPal and I'll do something else. But even then, look, he just keeps starting more businesses. So they're never satisfied. So I think that's really what it is. Also, it's just boring.
Yeah.
Um, because there was times where I was not engaged, where I didn't have an objective, and I was just like getting through the day,
Yeah.
and I was just kind of like just doing things, answering emails, whatever. And it was actually when Morty passed away. It was a huge wake up call. I'm like, oh, we gotta get stuff moving, you know.
Yeah.
And then ever since then, it's been like consistent. Let's know that we gotta do the next thing. Let's get to the next level.
I like when but you bring up the whole not being satisfied. And I do talk to go getters and people that are highly motivated, and people accuse them of being unhappy because
Mm,
there's that lack of satisfaction. And I've been accused of that myself because I've done so many things, but as soon as I hit it, I get bored immediately.
exactly.
Like I can do it for a day, like be cool with the same thing, and then I get really bored. And but I like that you bring it up because that I want people to know that that's okay to not be satisfied.
That's right. And the only thing I will say to people though is do take breaks,
Yes.
because you think that when you achieve certain things, you're going to take the break. No, because you're not going to be satisfied. So it's not going to happen. So you
Mm.
just take the break in order to recharge yourself because you just need to, and you're going to do it. One of my mentors, the person I really admire, Sean D'Souza, he and his wife take 3 months off
Oh
of the year.
wow.
Not 3 months straight, but
Yeah.
they take these various mini breaks throughout the year. And I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. And sure enough, he comes back, he's charged up because, if you are not satisfied, trust me, you go on vacation, have a good time. When you come back, you're going to be ready to go.
Yes.
Maybe not immediately. You might take a couple days to kind of work your way back in, but once you're back up and running, you're ready to go. So take your breaks. Don't think that you're going to wait until the future, until you retire. Trust me, you're going to be worn out, really worn out. Sharpen that saw, get on that break. He plans his breaks. The beginning, when he starts planning, he's like, first thing he does is let's figure out when the breaks are going to be.
Hmm.
Then we're going to figure out the projects we're going to do, and we're just going to fit them in between those.
Okay.
And if you do that, it gets done. I did that one year. I did not do that. I did that the year before last. I did not do that this last year. And I'm like, so now that I'm talking about it, I'm like, I need to do that again. So,
Yes, you definitely need to take that time.
yeah. So,
Now, those listening, and again, I thank you for talking. What what was your biggest maybe failure or obstacle that you faced overall through your life, or how did you overcome that? Just because it still sounds like you got it all together, and I know that you've been giving really good advice, but what would you say?
ooh.
How do you get over those humps when people, because they will face them, as much as you tell them to tackle one problem at a time. How would you tell people besides doing that? How do you get over those kind of?
So the question was, what's your biggest like failure or something?
Yeah, like how what throughout your, even when you were in public school teaching or going through on that, what was the biggest obstacle you think you
The
faced?
biggest obstacle was procrastination for sure,
Mm.
on just a lot of different things. And how to overcome it is literally put yourself in the situation where you can't procrastinate.
Okay.
So, I'll give you an example. There was a course that we had been meaning to create. So we had a plan for 3 courses, and that started like 10 years ago, like 2010. 3 online courses. Created one of them. A few years later, created the second one. The third one, years and years were going by. Didn't create it till 2016. So this is like after Morty had died in 2015. And someone said to me, "Wow, how did you finally do it? What happened? Because we've been waiting on this for years." And basically, here's what happened: we needed the money.
Yeah.
And so I looked at the calendar and I said, "You know what? This course hasn't been created. I could create it, and we could sell it. We could bring in the right amount of money." And I looked at the time and I said, "Here's when the course would have to go on sale. Here's when we would need the money by." I worked backwards up to the present, and even including time creating the course. And then I got it done, and that's literally how I get things done. So, the beginning of the week, I plan the week. I actually block out the time to
Okay.
do. I say, okay, what are 3 outcomes? People plan too many things. I'm like, no, 3 main outcomes for the week. I write out what does it take to achieve each one, and then I schedule time blocks of time to work on it. I don't actually say what's going to go in each block, but I'm like, here's the block for writing for the blog, and there'll be like 5 blocks in there, 5 days of the week. Here's the blocks for working on the lessons for this course, and I'll plan out just 3, and then I'll leave big swaths of time for break, which is like between 12 and 3. I think I have as I'm not going to take a break that whole time, but 12 and 3 I don't have anything planned.
Okay.
So if something takes longer, so be it. I have that extra time, or if I'm just worn out and I need a rest, I'll have that. So I plan. That is the time where I do plan the breaks planned out in advance. That's the time where it's not completely. And then Friday, I don't have anything scheduled other
Mm.
than the meetings that are scheduled. So I don't. I'm thinking I have to get everything done in 4 days.
Okay.
And so if something takes longer, well, there's an extra day still. So I always leave the buffer time open for it. So scheduling works really well for me because if I schedule it, then I will spend the time on that. But if I don't, if I'm like, well, one day when I get time, I'll do it. It's not going to get done. That could go for months. Oh, I should do that eventually. Yeah. Well.
So you plan. So that's really good. That's really good advice. You plan a week at a time
Mm-hmm.
and three objectives each week,
That's right.
and scheduling.
That's
And I
right.
and I think that's really important because I always tell people, don't, yes, have a goal, but let's just work on, we do say a week at a time,
Mm-hmm.
because if you're only thinking about 4 years down the line, that's too overwhelming to think about that, so to break it down.
Yeah, and I will set 3 goals for the year, 3 goals for the month, and then 3 goals for the week. And if you have goals for the year that have nothing to do with the month, you're not going to achieve that goal. If the
Mm.
goals for the month have nothing to do for the week, and they don't relate, then you're not going to achieve that monthly goal. So you might have to realize when you look at the week and you say I've got all these urgent things, you might have to restructure some of those other goals, or you might have to say how do I solve that problem of these issues keep coming up that takes me away from those objectives. But because you've actually thought it through, now you actually can see that's a problem. The problem, if I have a work, there was a book that I'm still working on for Shelley and someone else. His name is Vahan, and I wasn't getting anything done on it, and I had that as an objective, monthly to get a certain amount done. And so I said weekly it's not happening. So I said, okay, I'm going to set 15 minutes a day at least to work on this. So that's literally in the schedule, automatically, like 5 days a week. And so we're making progress. I have 2 chapters of it done
And
now.
just 15 minutes,
Yeah, well,
which is
it
great.
takes, yeah, and that's the minimum. I could go
Yeah.
over, but I have to at least do. Because
Okay.
see, if you set a goal, if it's something's hard for you to make time for, if you set a goal, I'm going to work on it an hour a day. When you don't have an hour, you're not going to do it. So you
Mm.
set a minimum goal. Minimum's 15 minutes. Now, sometimes I'll work 30 minutes, 45 minutes on it, but it's got to be at least 15. I got to at
Gotcha.
least touch it. I might be reading some of the stuff and then editing it. I might be doing these small tasks, but my brain's still in touch with it. And then when you have more time, you end up doing more. And so, yeah, if you have something like that, work on it for a minimum. Set your minimum, your minimum work level, and then, but then you can go beyond it if you need. You will want to probably when you get started.
And that's really important because it doesn't matter how busy you are, if you can at least set that minimum per
Mm-hmm.
day. And most people are like, I don't have an extra 15 minutes. Well, I'm like, you probably spend more time in the restroom sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest, people just really think they don't have time when they can if they just structure it right.
Well, when I wanted to get back into running, I set a goal of 5 minutes a day.
Wow.
So that's like pitiful. I mean, you just put on your sneakers and then you just ran up down the street and back. But it works though because it just your brain gets used to it, and then you start noticing, oh, I'm going to be out there. Oh, it'd be nice to go this route. Well, that ends up taking 7 minutes. Oh, I nice to go that route. It ends up taking 10 minutes. So you end up making more time, but your brain's telling you, I don't have time. I can't do it with all these things I got going on. Set a tiny objective. I knew someone else who started meditating with 1 minute a day,
Mm,
and now he's got like 5, 7 minutes. So
that's
that's
awesome.
still small, but it's still better than zero. And maybe he'll get to 20 minutes. So
Now, to end, what just advice would you give to someone who's listening and just is, has things in mind but are, feeling a little hopeless right now? What would you just say to that individual
oh
listening?
well, if they're feeling hopeless, that's a tricky one. My thought is if they're feeling hopeless, but they're still thinking about their goals, they're not 100% hopeless. So I would
Mm,
say to yourself, if someone came to me like that, I'd say, how much hope do you have that you can accomplish this goal on a scale of 0 to 10? And they'll probably tell me a number, and it's usually not zero. I've
mm-hmm.
never had someone give me zero, like two, three. What is it that brings you up to two or three? See, why is it not zero? Why is it higher than that? What's going on? And then they start telling me about their strengths and their abilities and what is they things they've done. And I go, well, and so now, Okay, so what's one step you can take then? Now from that place of I've acknowledged that it's not zero. I've acknowledged that there is something good going
Hmm.
on. I'm just going to build a little bit on top. What's that one little bit you're going to build? And then go from there. And then every time I would talk to them, I'd say, "So what level are you at now?" Now, oh, now I'm at a 3. Oh, okay, good. Well, and if you were taking it one step, or what's bringing it up to a 3? It was lower last time. What brought it up? Oh, I did this, I did that. Okay. Now, what's the next? If you want to take it 1 point higher, what would you see yourself doing?
Hmm.
And then, okay, you can do that thing and just keep going. And that's the thing. People have this thing, go big or go home. Go big or go home only works if you are like over brimming with confidence. If you just know, you already know how to do the thing, and all you have to do is work hard and you don't have to figure anything out, or the things you have to figure out are all things that you trained in, you just kind of know. Maybe you can do that. But I always say to people, no, go small. Think big, act small. Just like think big, act small, because it's all a bunch of small actions.
Yeah.
And you eventually you will develop that psychological momentum, that emotional momentum where you're just like, I just traveled this far. I could go another inch. I can go another foot. I can go another yard. And then you keep doing that every day. Eventually, you've traveled 100 miles. So that's what I say is just start small, but also acknowledge that you're probably not at zero.
That's really important. So if
Yeah.
you're listening, you're not at zero.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. And if anyone has any questions that you wanted to ask Rodney or myself, please feel free to email us at plainitsafe000 at gmail.com. Or if you feel that anyone can benefit from listening to Rodney's story, please share us and you know that we're here until the next time. Thank you.